We heard from Nebraska head coach Matt Rhule here on Monday. I'm Sean Callahan with HuskerOnline. Before I get to that, this report is brought to you by Game Time. It is your premier provider of all things tickets, whatever sporting event, college football, NFL football, the NHL, Major League Baseball, concerts, you name it. They have the tickets for the event you're looking for at the best prices. And we're going to give you another $20 off your order by simply using the promo code ON3. Just download the Game Time app. And we heard from Matt Rhule here on several different things Monday, but first and foremost about the officiating, as Nebraska did receive word on Monday from the Big Ten Conference that the spot was wrong on Emmett Johnson's second quarter run, which prevented Nebraska from getting a first down, and it kept the clock running probably an additional 30 seconds.
Well, I'll first say this. I commend the league for putting out a statement. You know, the worst thing I can do is get up here when I'm trying to get our team to turn forward to UCLA and be talking about, you know, the calls that went against us in a loss. I think that's very forward-thinking of, you know, Commissioner Petiti and of Bill Carollo, who's the head of officiating, and I think it's what should be done. You know, we all just want transparency in everything, right? Hey, well, you know, I come here, you guys ask me what happened on this play, what happened on that play, right? And to do my best to be transparent and answer them. So I appreciate the statement. You know, that was a game. You know, you guys hear us talk about situational football. We're trying to master the last drive of the half, the last drive of the game. When you have one timeout and you think it's a spot, you know, it just makes it hard to coach, right? So that was difficult, and they addressed it, and that's really all I want. I will say this: I think one of the hardest jobs in the world right now is to be an official. I grew up in an era when I played college football. I stood next to Coach Paterno. The officials went out there; they had their whistles, they threw their flags. You know, there weren't 52 camera angles because every game's on, you know, national TV. Like, you know. There weren't, you know, they threw the flag and you live with it, right? And, you know, Coach Paterno would yell at the officials and, you know, just kind of, that's how the football was. And now, you know, now you in a world where, you know, now we have instant replay. And the first instant replay was, you know, to overturn the egregious stuff. And now it's more, now we can fix things. Like last week there was 3 seconds on the clock and all of a sudden, as you know, now there was 6 seconds against Indiana. So now as an official, when I'm calling the game on controversial calls as if, well, what happens if it does get overturned? So they go with, like if it's close to being a fumble, they think the guy's down. They might, you know, they're kind of instructed to call it a fumble so that the play continues and then replay can overturn it. But replay, if it's close, will go with the call that stood, which even though that might not be what the official thought. So the amount of things that must be in those guys' heads, God bless them, and then there are 100,000 people and they're running backwards trying to say, is it DPI, is it OPI, right? Now, you know, it used to be the officials have to go over and talk to each other. Now they have a microphone and they're talking to each other during the game and they're confirming things. And it just, I feel for them, you know, so I'm never going to get up here and complain about judgment calls. That's not my thing. I've been upset, or I've talked about really replay. Like last year we had 3 replays that the next day they said, hey, replay was wrong. That's hard for me, right? And it used to be replay was in your own building. You'd see the replay official before the game. He was going to go up and make the call. Now replay goes off to a central site somewhere, and it's probably the best system in the world. I just, you know, I advocate for the players. I advocate for the coaches. I'm also going to advocate for the 8 guys out there calling the game. You know, I'm going to sit there and give them my opinion at times. I never cross the line. I do want to say this because my daughters, and, you know, I want every person in Norfolk and Tacoma and everywhere in the state. Both times I've gotten a flag this year, the next day they said never should have been a flag. So I don't disrespect officials. I stay on the field. I coach the way I've coached the last 12 years, you know, aggressive, you know, but defendant, and no one on my sideline talks to the officials. Officials will always tell you we're disciplined. So I appreciate the statement. But I do want to say it must be really hard to be out there making those calls. And you know, there was a really controversial OPI in the Ohio State-Oregon game, right? And they called offensive pass interference. And so what ends up happening is over the next couple of weeks, you know, the officials, you know, there's all these points of emphasis and all this stuff, and they're talking about OPI, and they're talking about OPI, and then all of a sudden we show up, and we get 2 OPIs, you know, on the last drive of the half and on the last drive of the game. Now, you guys have watched this. I don't know how many OPIs we've had this year, offensive pass interference. But these points of emphasis, you know, that kind of hit you each week, you know, something happens and we change the kickoff return mechanics. Like, as a coach, I can't change what an 18-year-old does or a 22-year-old does on 3 days' notice. We went through camp. We go through all the officiating training. Officials come to practice. We're told to do things a certain way. And then as the season goes on, as things happen, man, The officials have to adjust, but we have to adjust. And all of a sudden you get into a game like this and all this stuff happens. So I appreciate the transparency. I do want to make sure everyone understands where I stand, though. I advocate for the officials. I think we should let them call the game, and it shouldn't be all this. It shouldn't change as much as it does based upon this and that. We should just let them call the games and live with the result, right? Like we live with the players' result. So I appreciate that. Some tough things went against us. We've had replay go against us. We've had my penalties go against us. I don't want any more apologies on Sunday. Like, it can't happen against UCLA. It can't happen against Iowa. You know, these things can't happen moving forward. And so I'm very forward-thinking. I appreciate, Bill. I appreciate Tony. I appreciate Troy. I appreciate everybody. But it can't keep happening to us. You know, it needs to be fair. And that's not about the guys making judgment calls. They got a tough job. I just want to tell us what the rules are, and we'll kind of go from there. And so that's my take. I hope it's okay that I say that. But, we're not going to sit here and whine about, whether it was a hold or not. During the game, I'm going to yell. When they false started, I yelled, "Hey, that's a false start." Like that's a not hold, no hold. That's a false start. But then the play's over. We play the next play, and we got to play better. Before we can worry about the officials, we need to worry about ourselves.
As for the play against Ohio State, Rule continued to commend his defense and how well they rose up to the challenge against a very talented Buckeye offense.
Well, I think it starts with you should start with stopping the run, but I think a very important thing, because I've talked about it a lot here, is if you want to run the football, you have to be good on third down. Because if it's 2nd and 7, you're probably going to run the ball to get it to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, and you better be able to convert those. And for us to be 1 of 10, hold them to 1 of 10 on third down, to me, never allowed Coach Kelly and Coach Day to call multiple runs and try to wear us. Because really when you watch what they do, they throw the ball on the perimeter, they try to wear you out, and then they come downhill and run it right at you. I thought our guys won third down, so we were able to get off the field, and that we covered them. We did a good job. We also stopped the run, right? I mean, so I think those two things go in hand. We stopped the run. We got off the field on third down. The key Achilles heel was we gave up, 3 big plays, and it's hard to win versus quality offense when you give up big plays, which goes back to kind of when you guys asked me about our offense. I say, hey, we're not creating enough big plays, right? So. But I thought that's what the defense did well, and I think when you watch some of the guys play, I thought it was the best our defense looked. Not the results. I thought it was the best some of our guys on defense have looked to this date. And they played with a unique, just relentlessness that now they've put it on tape, so they have a standard now that they have to match.
Just 4 games remaining here in the season for the Huskers, and quarterback Dylan Rola continues to get better each and every week.
I mean, better and better and better. I mean, so much of that game was, hey, getting the right play here, getting the right play there. You think about, you're a freshman quarterback. You go out in front of 100,000 people, all of whom have a feeling about you because maybe you were once committed there. Another one of your freshmen drops the opening kickoff return. You start with the ball on the 8-yard line. You bobble the opening kickoff. And what I loved about what Dylan did was he just settled down, right? He gave us chances. If you go back over the last 4 games and you calculate in all the defensive pass interference yardage we've gotten because we throw so many go balls, that would add into kind of what he's done passing game-wise. But I think the things that he sees, the things that he's improving upon, this is there's no better teacher than experience. I think he's getting a ton of experience, and they threw a lot of things at him this week. Rutgers threw a lot of things at him. They threw a lot of things at him this week, though, more than he's seen in the past, and I thought he adjusted and handled it really well.
On Saturday, we saw Rola actually run the ball more than he's done in his career.
I think one of the key things from Dylan is he can do it, right? He has, he can do it, and he has the ability to scramble and look down the field, but then also take advantage and run. I think one of the really cool things I'm having a chance to experience with him is watching him grow each week. I think in the Indiana game, there was a play where he started to scramble and stopped and threw it back. And as I watched the game with him, he's like, I should have run it there. And I don't even know if that's right or not, but that's what he took away from it. So I think he, every week, is trying to find 1, 2, 3 things to improve upon. We heard Coach Day's press conference last week, and we heard him talk about why, when I watch their defense, I think it's, they look like a big-time defense. They were taking a lot of questions about why aren't about their defense, and he talked about doing some different things, and we were all kind of like, you play a team coming off a bye, it's like you better be ready for anything to come out. There was way more man-free pressure Usually, Larry Johnson defenses is 4-man rush and, hey, let's go eat. There was way more pressure. And so part of that was him navigating that, recognizing that in the game. But when you bring man-free pressure, if you pick them all up, there's no one for the quarterback. And so he got out and he took off and ran. And, to me, it's like Dylan's got like an algorithm in his brain. And so every time you add something to it, it's like, hey, I can do this against this. So he added it. So in terms of during practice, I just think he's always trying to improve, get better.
However, a point of emphasis and concern for a lot of Nebraska fans with the offense has been the screen game. Nebraska ran 10 screens on Saturday at Ohio State that netted just 28 yards.
I'll be very humble when I say this. I completely understand why people are frustrated, right? Completely, At the same time, what I would say is you go block that front without throwing a couple screens and tell me, okay, they're dominant, absolutely dominant. There's some kids that feel really bad on our team because they see the heat that, Sat's taking or I'm taking or whoever, and they know that they had a missed assignment. If they had blocked the man-to-man defender, the ball would have gone for about 50. That being said, you have some things built in, like, hey, we're running this play. If they bring zero blitz, we're throwing a screen. That's what kind of most people do, and they threw the screen, and we just didn't make the block or whatever. So we look at everything like we have to be better as coaches. Like, it always starts with us. There's one thing you're not allowed to do in our building. You could never say the players weren't good enough. You can never say, oh, so-and-so, he's not good enough. So, yeah, it wasn't good enough. The screen game wasn't good enough, To have 2 on the final drive, I can understand why people would be frustrated about that. We came out and threw the go ball to Jamal and got the offense. He caught it. We have the ball on the 45-yard line. We got the offensive pass interference. We came out. We threw the backside in cut versus cover 2. The targeting play. We get the ball. They came out. They played man. We went to the screen. So I wish we could go back on those things. But yeah, the screen game hasn't been terrible for us, but it was not very good for us in that game. And it's just one of those things come out of the game as coaches, and you're like, hey, we really thought going into that game we were going to need to be able to screen them because of their pass rush. Even plays like like we were putting Wood in motion and running as fast as we could and blocking their DN and handing the Bonner and handing the ball off. He missed one in a crucial time, but yet they weren't quite running up the field and rushing us as much as they were because they had to play the screens. So much of football to me is complimentary. There's things I really regret from that game. Some of the play calls we called, some of the defenses we called, but that's ball, man. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it wasn't good enough. It hurt us in crucial situations. We got to be better. We went into it with a plan, thinking we needed to be able to do that, and in the key moments at the end of the game, it didn't work out.
This week, UCLA will come to Lincoln with a very good run defense.
As it pertains to UCLA, they're going to challenge you with their run defense. Like, they are big and physical and athletic on defense, and teams that normally run the ball really well struggle to run it against them, and then they pressure you and play man. All the things that at times have bothered us. So this is a real opportunity for us this week to show that we fixed some of those things.
And the Bruins are making the transition here to the Big Ten from the Pac-12 as they've had their ups and downs here in year one.
Yeah, it's even me coming here last year, right? And it's your first time in the Big Ten, like learning the structures, learning the personalities, learning the towns, learning the travel, like learning the style of play, learning the weather. All those things matter, So, I think when you go into a new conference, you're kind of trying to figure out, hey, who wins in this conference? The unique thing here is I think we've all joined a new conference. Like I said, think about who we're playing this week. You guys have been covering Nebraska for a long time. Seeing a Nebraska-Ohio State game is pretty common, right? But having that followed up by, UCLA then USC is not common. So I think we all are just kind of in this period of trying to recognize, what the conference is, the effects of travel. Imagine had this been an 11 o'clock game for them, right? They'd be kicking off when I was at UCLA, we went and played Kansas. It was an 11 a.m. start. We had a 5 a.m. West Coast wake-up time. Like, that was a challenge. So I think all those things are, unique. And then how it affects you in recruiting. I think when you go to different conferences, you're trying to figure out where you want to recruit, because when we talk to kids now in California, they know that they're probably going to have Nebraska go out to California every year. We're probably going to have a USC or UCLA game every year, and so that can be a cool thing in recruiting. So we're trying to do that. I'm sure they're trying to figure out, like, USC is recruiting kids here in Lincoln, Omaha. So just changes kind of the whole footprint, I think, of everything. And then I think the whole thing, I think we're all seeing a whole different version of college football now moving forward, right? Like, just, you know, I think every team in the SEC has a loss. You know, though there's still 3 unbeatens in our league, or 2? Is there 2, 3? So that'll probably at some point change because some of those guys are playing each other. So I think just college football in general is changing.
And finally, a win on Saturday would get the Huskers bowl eligible for the first time since 2016, but it's not really something on the mind of Rule.
You can't get me to answer that one. That's a heck of a try.
Rule also confirmed here on Monday that fullback Barrett Liebentritt is out for the season. He suffered a broken bone in his back. Reporting here with the Nebraska football team in Lincoln, I'm Sean Callahan with HuskerOnline.com.